And welcome everybody to the World of Ability Podcast Network. My name is Emily Gomer and a podcast engineer here. I'm excited to bring you another episode of the World of Nutrition with Marilyn Lemaire. And so we are here every second Friday of the month and that can involve nutrition and health, lifestyle related things. But with nothing further ado, I'm going to bring in Marilyn to kick us off today. So welcome, Marilyn.
Yay. Well, hello, Emily. Thank you for introducing me. I appreciate you as always. Welcome to the World of Nutrition podcast, where we talk about nutrition for your body, mind, and soul. Today, I have an amazing, exciting guest. I'm super excited to have her. Thank you. And let me just give you a little background about her. Theresa Monro is a galactic historian, messenger of the councils of light, spiritual catalyst, and creator of Essence of the Rays of Light, a line of healing infused sprays and jewelry to make your healing and ascension process easier and faster. She is here to bring clarity, empowerment, and peace. Her family brings solutions to world problems with a lineage of healing that goes back 700 generations on one side of the family and 500 on the other. Theresa, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having me.
Please share with us a little bit more about what's been happening.
Oh my gosh, today is a really pivotal day for a lot of humanity moving forward. And it's very exciting. And my cat, who never comments, is meowing and confirming. So it's funny. There's always like when I go to film YouTube videos and things like that, there'll be roosters in the background or birds or however that are like ruining or meowing that confirm. It's this thing that's been going on for almost 10 years now. So, but there's been a lot of shifts that have been happening. I've been given the schedule of exactly what's happening with all the timelines clearing and things like that. But literally, like with yesterday, we're seeing the major, the Phoenix coming out and the auroras, and which is really fun because it's a sign to humanity of just what we've been dealing with. Because I remember the whole story of when, you know, what it was originally like here on the planet and what it was created to do when evil entered the planet and now when it's exiting the planet, and also the subsequent lifetimes in between of ushering that process in of all the light and bringing in so much light to make sure, because the planet Earth decided it wanted to go back and ascend, which it hadn't done before. There's nothing in the history of creation that's ever descended this far and decided to go back up. Now, part of what's beautiful about that, without getting too much into a tangent about that, is that everything else in all of creation can look at what we've done and never have to go through that. They can just get the lessons from it and move forward. So, which is great. So there's been a number of stories I could tell you in terms of what the process is like to make sure that we get there really smoothly. So, yeah.
Yeah. And
And
so
we're
I have,
almost done. We're almost there. But sorry, go ahead.
no, I have some notes here, so I want to make sure that I don't forget anything. So thank you for
Yeah.
having me. So we wanted to talk about clearing the 3D of negative energy and what Jesus had
Yeah.
said. So
Yeah, that was really fun because Jesus had come to me about, let me see, about, yeah, last Sunday, because I was talking to him about how my birthday is this week. And I was like, Dear Jesus, I want all the gifts because he and I have a relationship that go really far back. And I just was talking to him and he came to me and he said, Yeah, we're almost done. He's like, he'll come and he'll confirm things, or he'll say, Hey, we need the company of heaven works on our behalf, and sometimes they need more petitions that are coming from people that are in the physical, and to respect the free will choice here. They'll say, hey, we need jobs, so to speak. Sort of like there's thousands of angels that need jobs, and we can always ask them, I need an angel for this and for that, and they just get so excited. So but Jesus had come to me last Sunday and he goes, we're almost done. And so then I had forgotten. I'm not an astrologer, but I do know like astrology will keep the time of certain things. So with and there's certain energies that shift. And so today we have Pluto going direct, which is we're walking out of this 15-year period of, clearing energies and the last of power struggles. So today with it going direct, I've noticed that there's a lot of things in the past 24 hours where things are just like certain doors have closed to the past and just in time. I'm watching the divine timing of things, talking to the councils of light, and it's been pretty amazing. And my cat has never meowed this much. It's like she wants to be on screen. I have a Maine Coon. So anyway, she's one of my ESAs. So, but yeah, all her main job is she just oozes love on behalf of, yeah, Mother God. So that's her job. So, and she's very good at it. But yeah, Jesus did come to me and he let me know. He said, "Hey, we're almost done here." And that was really pivotal to his time because he had wanted, I remember when I got to a point last October, was anchoring in certain frequencies. And he was kind of emotional about it. He was excited about the trajectory, but he had wanted to do it during his time and didn't get to. He did other things, but he didn't get to do that the way that he had wanted to. So, yeah, it's interesting talking to him and seeing a different side of him than it just on a personal level, if that makes sense. We all have a personal relationship with him if we want, but to get to talk to him about certain things that he wanted to complete then versus what we're doing now, and when he was present for when Revelations was written, and the trajectory of where humanity would be going. So, and knowing during that time, it's like, well, we didn't do it because I was with him then, in the physical. And I remember those times and growing up with him and spending adulthood with him and what all that was like. And so, with us writing Revelations and then seeing or Revelation, seeing where we're at now is kind of a big deal. So, yeah, such fun to watch where it's like all these years of things. Even during the lifetimes during Egypt, we knew what was going to happen. Now we've always known. So, yeah. It depends. It's like when it's a long story of when like stuff entered the planet in the first place. And we petitioned the people that were here in Lemuria, and it was an era of perfection. And we mentioned to them directly, like, hey, this stuff could get destructive. And they said they're not going to be destructive in the beginning because everybody was really gifted then. And that's what we're headed back to. And everything was really gifted. And we specifically said to them, hey, we're not sure whether or not they're going to stay good or not. And they said, well, it doesn't matter. There's going to be a time. It matters, but they weren't worried because they said, along with the councils of light, we're all there, and they said it matters, but we'll get them back either transmuted back to the light, or they choose light, or the earth will end up going right back to its ascended self. And that's right where we're at now, is the tail end of that. And there's been multiple times where we have, attempted to make that happen, and now it's happening very quickly. So, but we're almost there. So,
Awesome.
yeah.
Share a little bit more about the full 3D collapse that you had mentioned to me.
Yeah, so it's not the full dimensional collapse, but it's all of there were some questions around that because pretty much everything is moving out of the third dimension, on all levels. But there's also, it's more, he's talking about the negative power structures. It's not truly power, but it's just the negative structures that were in place are almost fully, completely collapsed. And I'm watching it, like I'm getting updates. It's funny, I've told you this before, like offline, I'm getting the amount of information like in a month, what I used to get in a month for energy updates, because I created some of the original energy updates. There's one other person doing them at the time, on YouTube years ago. And the information I would get for an entire month is now what I get in a week. And now it's even coming down to like 5 days. So it's a lot. But what's really cool about like today's energy, and moving forward is we get to take all those epiphanies and apply them, because this is where like our fate really moves fast forward at this point. So I hope that helps. But it's kind of interesting because he sometimes and this is really early for that information to be coming out, because usually I wait a little while on it. But he did mention um, that we're almost done with the negative power structures being completely dissolved. And this is something like I do want to mention this. This is very important to know, is that of all the chosen ones and with Mother Mary, everything has been offered its choice point. Everything knew that this is on all sides, that this is what was going to happen. It's not a forcing it. I mean, forcing, it was just it, everything was asked what it wanted, what side it wanted to be on, what it wanted to do before these events took place, because no matter what, the earth is going here. Are you joining us? Here's your choices. Everything's been offered that on all sides. And that's something where some people didn't want to do that. So I want to make sure that's known, that everything was asked. That's the level of, free will choice respect that was offered to things that didn't even know it had free will choice. Now, these are also things that a lot of people didn't want having be on the planet and no longer is, or they switched to the light. But that's another long, long, long story in terms of those events that I could talk all day about. So, but yeah.
Thank you so much. Yeah, and share with
Yeah.
us a little bit more about the hurricanes and what's been happening.
Yeah, that was something interesting. So something and you know how you have those moments where you look back on your life and you know that certain things that you've been through have gotten you to where you're at now. And well, periodically I'll have those where I'll sit with the councils and they'll be like, okay, this date, and this date, here's what happened and here's what got us to where we're at now. And I'm like, oh, okay, that's cool. And I'll have, moments like that where I'm like, ooh, thank you guys for putting, that together, because I've watched like certain protections of things by God where there is like zero, nobody's getting in. I've seen like the schedule. It's neat. Like yesterday, I met with somebody who has a very cool job of putting everything into divine order. She doesn't have to do anything. It is just an energy on behalf of God. She's a Blu-ray angelic type, because there's all these rays of light in different colors. She comes from the Blu-ray of light, which represents Father God. And she brings in all the divine order. So, which is cool. So by the time she shows up, everything has scrammed out of there, because divine order is around her at all times. And one of the ascended masters that reminds me of that is El Moria will do some of that, although he's doing more health work right now, which will be a fun surprise when he comes to the planet soon, and he'll be incarnated, because he's going to be one of the ones that brings back the divine health blueprints, which they call the Manu, which is the keeper of those, which is more green ray stuff. But this woman is a blue ray, and she works with, and a lot of the indigo types are not actual indigos in the company of heaven. They're referred to as blue ray angelics, but they're very indigo in their auric field, and people don't know what that, you know, they didn't know what to call that. The rays of light weren't really discussed until more the 60s. They started to be talked about. But anyway, my point is I was sitting in her presence and everything like scrams, everything's in divine order in her presence. So it's a fun thing to watch, because her job is to put everything into divine order, but she doesn't have to do anything. She just holds the energy of that, and anything not in divine order takes off. So that was a fun thing to watch, but I forgot there was something else I was talking about just before that I forgot. So sorry, just before I talked about the divine order, but
We're
I know
talking
El
about,
Moria's, sorry,
oh,
talking
we were
about
talking
what?
about hurricanes.
Oh yeah, and the hurricanes. See, it's funny how there's these little distractions that happen, but it's still important details that are coming. So anyway, when I was talking about the different things on my own personal timeline that were important, um, one of the things is I grew up with hurricanes, big hurricanes, and I had seen them when they weren't engineered, so to speak. They weren't what they have become. And we'll get into this in a second, but we just cleared the second of four major timelines of golden ages during this time was Greece. And the negativity, the enemy types were not happy about that. And so they created some storms. And so what I was shown, and I had cleared storms here in Hawaii, we will like push storms. Like there are a lot of people that just talk to the elementals and calm the storms and have them fizzle out before they hit the islands or just get them to go south. And there's a lot of people who do that here. It's known, it isn't really talked too much about. It's just like, oh, yeah, let's just concentrate on getting that storm out of here. And that's what we do. And a lot of people have forgotten that and are starting to remember, though, that they have that ability. This storm was pretty great in terms of all the prayers that went towards it to make it stop. And it's funny, my other ESA just showed up and they never show up for these. So anyway, I guess it's like they're making a joke about how there's an audience in front of me for the stories that I have to tell because storytelling is my favorite. Um, but before I get into too many tangents, anyway, with the hurricanes, I was taken by the councils to go see. This was on the 7th, which was a big day because I had just talked to Jesus. I was like, let's do all the fun things this week because it's my birthday week, and boy, did they deliver. So the councils came to me on the 7th and they said, okay, we need to go see the storms. And I said, okay. And I'll tell you, like, no matter what's going on, if the councils show up, you end up listening to what it is they have to say. And you want to because they're there to help and it's exciting to get to go do things. But they took me into the storm of Milton and right near the eye, and there's all the councils. You've got all the angels with you, and they take you etherically to go see the center of the storm to go clear it. I don't go into storms, like I watch from afar, but it was really interesting to get to go and see the storm. And there was a gigantic entity that was there. And I thought, oh no, that is not happening, and we showed up with divine authority. God frequency was there. Jesus was there. By the councils of light, these are the saints and the ascended masters and the angels. We didn't even have to really say anything. I just thought, scram, this is not happening. you know, I'm very protective over places I've created as Elohim, you know. So I was seeing it was coming over, just about to hit landfall. We shifted some of the timing of it, pushed the storm back a little bit, and then um, we ended up watching, and the entity took off, and that's when I realized, and I was told basically that every storm has an entity and you don't want to be naming the storms because the darker stuff, this is coming to an end. This is like our last season of them being able to do that. And it's not going to be happening anymore, but they used to name by the name of the storms. It has a certain frequency to it, and then they would apply an entity to it, and then they would have fun and watch how Earth would. And this is the enemy side of things. And it's not by coincidence that those storms come out of Africa, where there's been a lot of negative practicing going on, but and abusing energies and things, which is also coming to an end. There's a lot of people that are stopping doing that, and finding that, that they don't have the same power that they once had with it. But anyway, coming through like with the storm, we ended up requesting that it dropped all of its water as much as possible in the oceans. And these are things anybody can do. I have a prayer on my Instagram where you can do that, but it dropped its water, it dropped its rain, quite a lot of it. And then there was a number of prayers we said over it. I flashed it, which is a tool that I've got that we can talk about too, that's talked about in the media. But yeah, so I was able to flash it. And so the flashlight removes the negativity from it and the negative intentions and just said, okay, it wasn't, even though it was kind of last minute, we did a lot. And I just watched the storm to see what would happen next. And I talked to several people that were in that area, checked in with the councils. And although there were a lot of tornadoes and there was some damage that was there, a number of people that I've spoken to were like, it wasn't as bad as they had expected. And there were a number of people this time praying for the storms, and it was amazing. I hadn't seen, especially since the Olympics, we have a lot more prayer on the planet. And it's been great to watch that because people through prayer are working with God and the power of God to be able to shift things positively on the planet. So that was one of the things that I saw. We went back in time for the Helene storm and cleared as much as we could from that one. It's always better if I can, because time's a human construct. Sorry, there's certain things they don't want said, but tough. Anyway, so when it came to the Helene storm, we went back in time and ended up clearing that as well, even though there was a lot of things that happened. But it is not a coincidence that they came in right behind the clearing of some major timelines in Greece and events in Greece, and I can explain what the timelines mean and all of that. And it resolved a number of things where negativity had happened on the planet. So, but that's the thing. Just pray over every storm. There are people that watch over it that are aware of the fact that entities had been placed over these storms for a number of years to try to influence the storm to have a certain amount of power, and people thought it was fun. And these aren't, these aren't people you're going to meet on the street necessarily. So, but they thought it was fun. But this is the last season of them being able to do this. So, and they are not happy that people know because a lot of people didn't know that there were things negative. They just look like black clouds. They're not anything that, and they're assigned to the storm and to try to create chaos. And when that took off and I flashed it and it dissolved into violet and then golden light, it was like dust. So that thing was not ever going to come back. So now certain things, and then we went into Wyoming and stopped the fires there, talked to the fire elementals. There's earth, air, fire, and water, and those elementals are created by God to help with the winds and things. And so what we're doing is liberating those so that they cannot be abused. Because there's a certain frequency on things. So anytime you see fires and things and people just pray and they don't even know whether or not there's elementals or negative influence or any of those things, it's able to stop it. And then there was this storm this is all in a period of about 5 minutes of how fast this happens. In terms of when the councils come and we're discussing these things. And then we stopped the ice storms that were due for Texas. There was a major winter storm, and I'm just sort of like, this is too early for that. But I could see how they were doing it, and then it got stopped because today's energy stops them from having certain, I don't want to, they're just certain opportunities and things are closing. So us going into Pluto into Aquarius is huge. So do you have questions about that?
Um, no, I was curious though. You were talking about like the Greek timeline and
Yeah.
I know that there's two other timelines as well coming up, so I would love to
Yeah.
hear more of
You want to hear about these? Okay,
that.
cool. Well, it's exciting. I really love the Greek timelines because I was there. So I was Pallas Athena. I had 96 oracles. They were called goddesses, but being Christian, it's sometimes there's no better word for it, really. It's just because goddesses is just a word that's so overly abused. Like everybody's a goddess. It's like, let's get back to God. Like, as much as God is omnipotent and that comes through Mother God, like the feminine frequency, without getting in too much into that, there are oracles. So what happened is there's all these people that came during Greece, and you'll need to remind me about the next two timelines because I'm going to get into this storyline real quick. So basically, there were 96 that were oracles, and these oracles were like baby ascended masters. When there are people that are learning as souls and they want to become saints, they want to become the individuals like Christ, because Christ has mentioned, like, it's not just him. Everybody has the ability to follow that path and have those gifts, but you have to go through certain things to make that happen. So there's a ton of people this lifetime that are going to become saints or ascended masters. And it's not just something that is determined by the Pope, although he will see, oh, wow, there's thousands of people that have become that now, which is where the earth is headed. And what will only be incarnated here are only saints. Pretty much because that's what everybody's, wanting to be. But my point is, so if you could forgive the use of the word goddess, it's just there were 96 women that were empowered, and they were representing the divine feminine, came under my charge to, when I was Pallas Athena, to learn how to, and Jesus talks about reincarnation quite a bit, and it is referenced in the Bible, but they came with me to help raise the frequency on the planet. It was part of an old storyline where again, there's these different time points and we're going backwards in time for clearing certain timelines. There's been four major ones. The first big one was in June. Between the 13th and the 21st, we were clearing major things out from that time. That touched Atlantis and Egypt. And that was a little on the volatile side. And then we had July that was quiet because we did so much in June. And you'll notice that the solstices tend to be kind of part of that and sometimes eclipses. So this one, the Greece one, was cleared at the beginning of September, and it had to be almost completely cleared by the 22nd. So what that means is during these times were golden ages that also fell because the dark came in and were doing negative things. And so they were dropping in like frequency. And now that's like been cleared, almost like all the lessons were returned to all the souls, all the soul fragments returned. I've seen people in front of me within a day be filled with light because they had closed out a whole bunch of like what they call like generational. I don't like these words, but it's like a generational curse or something like that in their family line. But they had made agreements personally on their own soul with darker things because they didn't know any better. These were during times when we didn't have as much of God on the planet. You'll hear me tell the Sanat Kumara story of when light first came to the planet with 144,000. Happy to tell you all about that. But my main point is we did a lot of things in terms of the negative structures being dismantled last year. Then in, June, we did the Egypt and Atlantis timelines and cleared all the negative events, because things used to go back to the past and try to pull the negativity out of there. They cannot do that anymore. They can't even reach those timelines. The timelines have been sealed, meaning like those events, that time, it's just timeline is a word for it. Then we went back in September and did Greece. And so you'll notice, like, before the seventh seal of Armageddon breaks next spring, we have two more timelines that are being cleared. But before I get to that, in Greece, the 96 physically, now at the other two, before I get into that, the other timelines that were cleared, physical people were in the areas of Atlantis and Egypt and contacted me and were like, hey, why are we here? Archangel Michael said to contact you to let you know we're here. Physical people went there and cleared. It was really, really exciting stuff. So, sorry, they did not like that, that I was talking about that. There's some stuff that's like trying to mess around. So it's like, luckily, there's Jesus and a number of other angels and things. So anyway, it's very protected work because this is God's will, and there were agreements made that this stuff will be cleared. But they don't like the stories being told. However, people went back in the physicality and were there and were clearing those things. And in the one in May for the Egypt and the Atlantis timelines, when there were, it went from golden age to war and things fell, there was a planned attack from the enemy on the 21st, I think it was, of June, when they were done clearing everything. And Archangel Michael was like, mission accomplished. And then boom, the whole councils came in and were showing, because I took June where I was kind of low key energetically. And I was like, what's going on? Because this isn't like me. And I was conserving energy and things. And then boom, he just showed, like the council showed me like a brand new etheric retreat was like the biggest one. It's for all ascended masters, all rays of light, because there's one for each angel. And I know I'm covering a lot of vocabulary here, but what happened is we ended up anchoring it over New York. So it was like, and it brings in so much light that that's what brought the heat waves on the East and the West Coast because it was literally burning out the negativity. It was huge when that happened. But I was like, oh, that's what we did with all the negative energy is we just build retreats with it and portals. So which has been really, really fun. And all that went over Toronto because she was like, why am I in Toronto from the Bahamas? And I said, well, because there's an etheric retreat that just, and the way that they showed me was really fun with the messages and stuff. So anyway, they ended up, I was there and it anchored. It took about 3 days to anchor that retreat and it cleared out a lot of the negative stuff. And so on the different coasts when it got so hot. That was why people were like, oh, it's global warming. I'm like, no, just people don't know that there was a major etheric retreat place there. And that's a place where you go for learning at night. And the Ascended Masters invite a lot of souls to go. And there's ones that you go to basically every 2 weeks. And I talk about that in my emails and on my Instagram posts. But back to Greece, the 96 went in the physical, almost all the 96. And it was interesting to watch as an Ascended Master or as Pallas Athena is standing back and going, okay, all the baby Ascended Masters are going now. And I was like, proud mama, but also wanting to be there kind of thing. Um, and they were all sending pictures and all these beautiful things of where angels were showing up. And it was amazing to watch. But in Greece, the main reason for being there is because people were starting to create fallen things like animals breeding with humans and DNA, and they were playing with things and playing God in a way that was abusive. And so all of the Olympians came in to calm the Titans and be like, okay, you can't do this. This is outside of spiritual law. And so when God comes in physical form like that, and the form of all these humans like Apollo and Pallas Athena and Aphrodite, and these are people I know in the physical, they're back, they're reincarnated like the 12 disciples are. And so these women were all the 96 back then, and it was a fun way of how they revealed who they were. Um, and because it was a surprise, I was watching some of them and they would let me know, hey, I'm in Greece. I'm one of your 96. I didn't know until I got here. And I was like, of course you are. So, because it's protection, Archangel Michael's always said that, that there is a huge level of protection in terms of not knowing. If you don't remember, sometimes it's because certain things are looking for that. And to make sure you have a good life here, sometimes that stuff isn't known until you're there. And so they went there and were going to certain islands, clearing for all the Olympians and resolving what happened with the Titans. And the dark got really mad about that because they could not go. That was a huge time where they were trying to like use a lot of darker things and create negative things. And it was a lot of fallen angelic stuff. It's written about in the Bible. And those were things that, yeah, ended up being cleared out and including what other people did. And on top of it, all of the things, like as much as like the good lessons were going back to people and their soul fragments, so to speak, not necessarily fragments, but just old pieces came back to people in a very positive way. But just as much as that happened, anybody who had negative karma, anybody who did negatively, any of the Titans, anybody that was involved with those things, their reckoning came. All of that negative karma hit. If they had, like, just as people were released from negative agreements and things, all in one day, like all that karma came flying back. But it was beautiful to watch the people that I've seen that are so much lighter because how they like get to love God even more and they're radiating more. All those agreements that people were trying to pull off of to be able to manipulate those people this lifetime because they were trying to do it lifetime after lifetime ended. And the enemy was unhappy about that. So they responded with storms. And so that's why, we were in there like clearing storms out and things like that. So that's why like the world healing is so important and so helpful to do and to pray and the rosary, and there's way more people praying than I've ever seen. So, but that was one of my favorites. So for about a 3 week period, really active during the eclipse time, because the eclipses were during the eclipse period, which is typically a 2 week window between a new moon and a full moon, or a full moon and a new moon. There's that 2 week window where God is in charge. So that's how protected those 2 weeks were prior to, where God's like not messing around. And we only have 2 times a year when we have the eclipses. And so this year during October, they were like, we're clearing this out. We're going to have um, major eclipses, nothing stepping in for that. Nothing's going to mess with that. And so the dark got angry because a lot of his power got taken away, and I literally watched that. And so yeah, that's that was it was a largely impactful one. Now we have and there's lots more stories around that sort of thing, but different islands that were associated with different of the Olympians, so that they could have even more positive karma, or just clear out any negative things from those times that they were involved with, to be released even further. Um, the 96 went to those islands as well. And they'd tell me, oh, we're at this island today, and this island today, and this island today. And it's told last minute so that nothing can interfere with it. So, I mean, nothing really could anyway, but it's like, let's not add any extra attention to it. Because the light can be very strategic. And I can see how my higher self was involved with God and Mother Mary and all of this to be able to do that. It's exciting. It's exciting stuff. Um, Now, the two other timelines that you mentioned, we have two other timelines coming up. We have another one. Let me see. We have Lemuria, which is when darkness first entered the planet. Lemuria had its first war, the first illness, and that sort of thing. So, which reminds me of other storylines of where other viruses that have been known came from other times that were engineered and things like that, because it's not natural to have that on the planet here. That's not of God. And but yeah, speaking of fourth seal and where some of those things came from, all of that, most of that has been cleared now through those timelines. But the next one is Lemuria, so it's where evil first entered the planet. And I remember when that happened, and it came over from Mars, which came from outside the system, which was chasing certain things that it couldn't have, because it didn't love God. Okay, old storyline. But when they first entered here and were living here amongst the good people, I'm trying to remember what all happened there. So there's some stuff that happened, and sorry, there's some interference because they don't want me to think about a lot of that, but a lot of that is getting cleared out. And so when those timelines are cleared later this December, we'll have 2 to 3 weeks where that is clearing. And it could be an active Christmas, but by the 21st, it's due to be kind of quiet between now and December, but they've been trying to show off otherwise. And then, yeah, and then they have plans to try to get more active at the end of December. But to be quite honest with you, most of where any of the enemy showed up on the planet for the first time, the destructive types, because that's all that they knew, because they had separated from God from other places. When that happened, yeah, we're back at the time where that clears out, and they agreed to it. And so now those timelines are getting cleared in December, and then next spring we will have the timelines of Jesus cleared, and then the seventh seal breaks, and we're walking into a period of peace. And that's when we start the major time of peace. And that's why when Jesus says we're almost done, we really are almost done, because I could see like what was left over in next spring, in March, and it's not much. And I can see what's affecting things to create certain world events, because a lot of that is not natural. So the more prayer you send that way, um, the better that it is. And there's a reason why, it's Jesus Christ and Mother Mary. And there's other things that, help in other religions, and, other areas, other Elohim like Krishna and Surya, and you see that sort of thing. But Jesus Christ is one that has had like the biggest authority. So But anyway, yeah, that's my first time talking about the timelines that are, excuse me, that are going to be cleared. But yeah,
So
anyway,
exciting.
what else did you want to know about? Because I can get kind of wordy about certain things because we haven't talked about the flash yet either and what that is.
That was next on my
So
list, actually.
so anyway, there is a certain gift that I have been given. It's funny because Gabrielle will tend to come and let me know as, one of the messengers of God, and he'll let me know, okay, it's okay to talk about this topic now. Like you've waited like the certain amount of time because there's certain things I keep to my chest, and one of them is using the flash. So I was gifted a gift. Called the flash. And what happens is you use the light of 10,000 suns and it flashes negativity out. Now, back in the days, the last time that I know of that it was majorly used was during Pleiadian times when they were having issues, but it destroyed everything, negative and positivity. This time, it won't hurt positive frequencies or the positive polarity of God. It doesn't hurt it, it helps. So there's a lot of misconceptions around it. There are people that don't know that it is a gift that belongs to me, that there are gifts that belong to certain humans. They've been talking about it, and I said, okay, let's talk about it. So it was gifted, and so what happens is there is the sword of Astrea, and there's also the ring of blue and white light, and the flash of 10,000 suns that comes through the suns, but people think it's a solar flare. It's not a solar flare. It comes directly from God, comes in and flashes. Now I can determine if it's just for a human being and can clear out and use it for healing for you. I can do it over a city. I can do it over the entire planet, solar systems. The Arcturians came to get me to ask me to go clear the Pleiades back in time. Um, because there were old energies that were pumping this direction, affecting other parts of the universe. We've literally been clearing everything. Every single planetary system of the multiverse has been involved. But there's been pictures, and I watch, like, it'll go through the wormholes or the black holes, and they flash light. They're like, oh, these black holes were like white. And I'm like, they're just portals. Like, but it's how God connects everything, like kind of like tunnels, and it just flashes the light all the way out. So anyway, that's what I have the ability to do, and I use it for a number of things. And sometimes you bring other angels to, assist and hold space, but typically it is aligned with the will. It's always aligned with the will of God. It's the only way that any of these tools can be used properly, or why they're allowed in physical form at all, is because they are used in congruence with Him and with the will of God. You can't just go use it and, hope it's going to be done in, a negative way. It cannot. It's like when Violet Flame came here and we petitioned for that during the harmonic convergence. But anyway, a lot of stories around that. It's something that's accelerating our ascension. It removes negativity, it dissolves it, and in a flash, because I can see it, and no pun intended. So anyway, it like I will see like your cellular structure like come out. The light will eradicate stuff. I've seen like all kinds of negative stuff flee, and then it comes right back together. Um, and it doesn't hurt. If you're negatively oriented and you're doing something you shouldn't be, it might. But for the positive, it does not. It doesn't hurt. But it forces negativity out. So it's used on the planet almost every day. And on the storms, all kinds of things. Typically, Jesus and the councils of light will come get me and say, hey, how do we use this? But I've started to see other people get interviewed about it. And I'm like, oh, that's my tool. Cool. I love how, it's so protected that people don't know that it was me unless I decided to talk about it publicly and sound. So now I chose your podcast to talk about it publicly. Um, but yeah, it's a very cool tool. And it's fun, and the power doesn't have to, it's the power of 10,000 suns, which is why people think it's a solar flare, but it's not. There are some people that think it's towards the future. It will be used in the future. But yeah, did you have questions about that in terms of how the flash works? Because I have noticed when I was listening to the interviews, people are like, we don't know where it's coming from. It comes from God, and it does come from God. But there's also Elohim that are involved in terms of, okay, this is how we're going to eradicate the negativity, which made its choice. And this is how we're going to use it. If you're abusing spiritual law, and then we have a right for using it. So, because, yeah, but that's what it's done. But it can be used in a number of ways. And if somebody wants to have like their energy field flash so that they could clear negativity out, because it clears negativity, karma, all this smaller stuff if you want, but it's really used on a bigger scale. Like when the Pleiadians, the Arcturians came to get me to clear for the Pleiadians back in time for their old wars, and then also for current times, the center of the earth, the moon. There's been a number of things where it's cleared out and it happens in a split second. It doesn't hurt. But I did use it one day in my house at full force while we were playing with, we were trying to adjust like how much power it needed, because I can adjust that and I'm known for that. But when it happened, my cat came flying up, and the first time I used it, like I could see over the earth everybody who had like the gift of visuals, and I heard a couple, and you can't curse on YouTube, but they were like, what was that? Like, people in different parts of the world. And then they were super curious, like, who are you and why do you have that? I'm like, I work on behalf of God. That's it. You are not in trouble. Like, this isn't going to hurt you. Because people had memories of like the Pleiades and things like that that happened. But anyway, did you have questions about it?
It's just so interesting, like how it works and how
Yeah.
the story behind it, 10,000 suns, and
Yep. I don't
yeah.
know why they chose 10,000 suns. I know 1 and 0 represent God. Um, but they chose 10,000. It's sort of like there's something around that. And then the number of Thunderbirds that I use too, being White Buffalo Calf Woman. Like I come in consistently with the same energy. There's just different names and things like that. I just come on behalf of God to help shift things for the light, because that's where the planet and humanity that I can hear saying, this is where, you know, this is what we need. Please come help. And so I can hear it. I talk to God, and God's like, go. So I like to help. And then this is the tail end of it though. And then we get to have this huge golden civilization, and it will remain that way. So yeah, there's a lot coming that's really great.
I'm
So
so excited.
I can hear the questions of the listeners that are like, guys, comment below and I will answer your questions, or you can reach me on Instagram.com/Theresa Monro, or you can schedule a session with me if you'd like. So no, I don't have a book on this yet. Yes, we're rewriting the books in the Bible. So, but anyway, write your questions below, and I'll get back with you if you'd like. So, did you guys have questions about it? Or did you, Marilyn? I'm
I
talking
just,
to your staff, but I forget that they can't come on like
oh
verbally.
yeah.
But yeah.
Well, I'm just like, I'm loving the Flash. Like when you do that, when you help the planet, when you help, you know, um, the light workers, like it's just, I really appreciate you and what you do, and I'm really just so thankful.
It's my pleasure. It is a pleasure to be of service to God at 100%. So it's because yeah, I didn't know if you wanted to talk about whether or not you've been flashed before, or what that's like. So it just gets rid of it fast, huh? Yeah.
Yeah, I feel
Yeah.
lighter and clearer. I'm like, yes, feels good.
Yeah. And it's not something they're granting to other people yet. You have to go through major initiations for that to happen. So yeah.
Mm.
I mean, literally, it hasn't been around since the Pleiades had its issues. So, yeah, which it's now come out of. But anyway, yeah, it's a fun thing. It's nice to talk about. I'm like, yay, that's what I can do versus, hearing other people, get interviewed about it. I'm like, do you want to talk about that? That's my gift. And you guys don't know that. So now the people, the world knows, like, so, but yeah. So thanks for letting me talk about these things. We have really, really good things. So maybe we can have further updates about timeline stuff in the future if you wanted.
Yeah, and really quick, last thing, Before I
Yeah.
ask where people can find you, please touch a little bit about the Phoenix. I would love to hear a little bit about that.
Oh yeah, so this is super fun. This has been showing up. This is a big time of Phoenix energy. So it's like coming from where we had to destroy some stuff, which is sometimes a part of the feminine role, is to clear out things that have a foundation that are no longer serving life or God. And so now we're coming out of the ashes, and you'll see the images in the aurora now. So like for me, I will um ask the Aurora to have certain images placed in it, or sometimes it will reflect like what's happening in the collective. So collectively, as well as for me, also for the planet, the Phoenix is rising. And you'll see it in the Aurora now, which came really far south again. And it happens every time there's been major like clearing, not necessarily, it's more than a win, so to speak, but where the light has like accomplished something that's on the timeline for the highest timeline, because there's also little smaller timelines that, end as we're all headed onto the biggest timeline, which is fully anchored now. So, yeah. So that's a sign. And yeah, I was seeing one where there was like a woman with my personality on, like, some people say it's a dragon, some people say it's a phoenix. To me, the head looks more like a phoenix. So I look at it and I'm like, oh, okay, there it is. So of course that's me. And I'm like, I wonder what I was feeling that way about at that moment when it expressed itself. Because sometimes and this is very protected. If there's something I want the collective to know on behalf of God and the Councils of Light, I will think about it like I need to let them know this. And it started to show up in the physical. So that's how much you can tell that the veils are really thin. And that's how close to God we are. So that's something we need to talk about, is like the seven seals are the seven veils dropping. And the more the veils drop, like the negativity clears, then there's the veil, and then we're closer to God. A lot of people thought it was like the seal and the negativity would break loose. It was actually the other way around. So, but that's a story for another time. So,
Yeah,
yeah,
thank you so
we're just
much.
getting closer to God. Yeah,
Yeah, I love it. Thank you so
yeah.
much for being here. Please tell the listeners where they can find you.
You can find me on my website at theresamonro.com, which I think will be in the description box below. I've got the only spelling like this in the world, except maybe one other person, but I'm the only one publicly with it. So theresamonro.com, Instagram, Theresa Monro. If I have a fantastic email list, if you want to join that, I talk every Thursday about the current energies. It's a long one. Like I said, they're sending me a month's worth in under a week of information. Tuesdays, I talk about my healing infused products. So I'm trying to think what else. There's Patreon for my membership if you'd like. So I think you have all these links. And then I have my farmers markets in Hawaii. If you DM me on my social media or email me, then I could let you know about those as well in Hawaii. And then you can see the sprays themselves. But I do, yeah, healing infused sprays. They're all flower water based and they shift your energy immediately. So, yeah, I think that's everything.
How many? I love them. Like so many.
Yeah, you do.
Yeah.
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 So thank you so much, Theresa. I wanted to thank
Yeah.
Emily and Kurt, Mutual Aid Network. They helped to host World of Nutrition podcast. We take our skills all around the world with Mutual Aid Network, and we're able to help fill in the holes, right? Not everybody has maybe the finances to do different things. So we come together as a community and bring our strengths. So something that I love to do for Mutual Aid Network is I will help host online karaoke for people that love to sing. And we have people from all over the world come and they get to sing their favorite songs and we get to listen to other people and the different types of music and singing. It's so much fun. And then also I am Marilyn Lemaire and I represent Frequence, which is 11 harmonic frequencies infused into health and wellness nutritional products, which I absolutely love. It has helped to change my life. I wanted to share a testimony from one of my clients, Dr. Carla Garjaka. She shares as both a mother and a holistic educational and nutritional psychologist. I'm always looking for a natural solution that supports my daughter's health, solutions, and academic performance. So the Rise Mango Lemonade Nootropics with source trace minerals has been a standout product for us. My daughter loves the taste, and I've seen remarkable improvements in her energy levels and focus in school. So before, she often felt tired in the mornings and struggled to concentrate, especially during exam time. And now she's more alert and engaged in her studies. And so Dr. Carla Garjaka just highly recommends the products for parents seeking holistic support for their children's cognitive and physical well-being. So thank you, Dr. Carla, for that testimony. I love it. Please reach out to me at any time. I'm also on social media, Marilyn Lemaire on YouTube, Facebook, and we're just so thrilled that you're here for another episode of World of Nutrition. We'll see you next month. Aloha.
Bye. Marilyn, you have a great smile.
Oh, well, thank you so much. Let me take a screenshot of us. Okay.
Okay.
Let me see.